It always starts with a glance, a brief moment, a flicker of energy. Something moves inside you. You don't know what it is, but you feel it. A pull toward someone, toward something, toward a life that feels just out of reach. You tell yourself it's normal, natural, just attraction. But deep down, there's more, because desire, real desire, doesn't just live in your body. It nests in your unconscious. It whispers in dreams. It drives your choices when you're too distracted to notice. I've seen it in others, and I've seen it in myself. That silent current of wanting that disguises itself as logic. The job you should take, the partner who seems right, the life that looks great on paper, but feels hollow inside. Carl Jung believed desire wasn't merely about sex or status. It was a symbol, a messenger, an archetypal force that speaks the language of the soul, even if we don't always understand the dialect. And the irony, the more we try to suppress or control it, the louder it gets, like trying to silence thunder with a whisper. Maybe that's why your dreams sometimes feel like confessions. Maybe that's why a single glance can feel like a spark touching dry leaves. What if I told you desire was never meant to be feared or worshipped, but translated, not just into pleasure, but into purpose, art, freedom, wholeness? Let's go there together, but I'll warn you, this isn't the kind of talk about sex you're used to. This is the kind that changes your relationship with yourself. If you're still here, it's probably because some part of you already knows there's more to desire than the surface ever reveals. More than chemistry, more than touch, more than a set of neurons lighting up in your brain. What we call attraction may feel like biology, but what if it's a message? That ache in your chest, that fascination with someone you just met, that restlessness that creeps in at 2 a.m, pulling you toward something nameless. That is not random. Jung didn't look at sex as the world often does, as an act or impulse to be judged or indulged. He saw it as a sacred energy, a language spoken by the unconscious, an ancient code buried beneath the noise of daily life, a code that reveals itself in symbols, dreams, obsessions, and the moments we can't explain. And when we misunderstand this energy, it turns on us. It becomes compulsion, addiction, sabotage. But when we learn to listen to it, when we treat it not as a master, but as a guide, it begins to show us who we really are. This video isn't about sex as culture sells it. It's not about shame or seduction. It's about integration, about peeling back the layers to find the pulse underneath. You and I are going to explore desire, not to tame it, not to glorify it, but to understand it. Because what you desire most might be the very part of your soul trying to come home. I used to think desire was simple, an instinct, a tug in the body, nothing more. But the older I got, the more I saw how wrong I was. Desire is anything but simple. It hides behind your ambition. It dresses up as love. It slips into your dreams like a familiar stranger and lingers in your choices like a shadow. Carl Jung had a word for this. Libido, not just in the Freudian sense of sexual appetite, but as the raw energy of the psyche, a psychic fuel that powers everything, from your need to connect, to your longing to create, to your thirst for transformation. We've made the mistake of shrinking this force into something purely physical. We've tried to explain it with hormones, rationalize it with logic, control it with morality, and yet it keeps slipping through the cracks. Ever wonder why your most rational decisions sometimes feel completely wrong, or why you can't stop thinking about someone who objectively makes no sense in your life? That's not just bad judgment. That's the unconscious speaking. Desire is symbolic. It's mythic. It's the language your soul uses when it wants your attention, and when it goes unheard, it finds louder ways to speak. Sometimes it shows up as anxiety, sometimes as craving, sometimes as the endless scrolling late at night, searching for something you can't even name. Jung said that when libido is repressed, it doesn't disappear. It mutates. It becomes a haunting, a pattern, a loop. It pushes you toward people who break your heart, toward work that burns you out, toward a version of yourself that feels like a stranger wearing your skin. But when this energy is welcomed, when we stop treating it like a threat, something begins to shift. We start to see that desire doesn't just point outward. It points inward. It leads us into the cave of the soul, where the dragon of instinct guards the gold of transformation. And that cave, it's terrifying. That's why we avoid it. That's why we numb ourselves with distractions, hookups, workaholism, even spiritual bypassing. Yes, spirituality, when used as escape, can be just another mask for fear. But if you're brave enough to enter, you begin to see desire not as a prison, but as a bridge between who you are now and who you were meant to become. Think of libido as a flame. If you ignore it, it smolders. If you feed it blindly, it burns the house down. But if you learn to tend it, to hold it with care, it becomes light. It becomes the fire that warms a life of meaning. Odd fact, there's a jellyfish that can literally reverse its own aging process. It resets itself instead of dying. Desire can work the same way when we honor it, not exploit it. It can regenerate parts of us we thought were lost. Old school wisdom, the Taoists believed sexual energy, when refined, could lead to spiritual immortality, not because of abstinence or indulgence, but because of awareness. And in the academic world, this tension is still debated. Is desire a drive toward pleasure or a search for completion? I believe it's both, and I believe that when you trace your desires far enough, you end up at the doorstep of your own soul. There was a time I thought I knew what I wanted in a partner. You know, someone who got me, who made my heart race, who filled in the empty spaces I didn't want to admit I had. But then I met someone who seemed perfect, and it was electric for about 3 weeks. Then it unraveled, fast. I didn't understand why I was devastated over someone I barely knew. Turns out, I wasn't just mourning the person. I was mourning the image I'd projected onto them. Carl Jung called this the anima and animus, the inner woman in every man, and the inner man in every woman. They're not just concepts, they're archetypes, primordial images hardwired into the psyche. They shape who we're drawn to, who we idealize, and how we love. Ever fall for someone who made no sense to your friends, but felt like a cosmic connection to you? That was likely your anima or animus saying hello. These inner figures are the soul's way of pulling you toward wholeness, but when left unconscious, they wreak havoc on your relationships. The anima, when unintegrated, becomes the muse, the manic pixie dream girl, the seductress who entrances and vanishes. She appears in dreams as a mysterious woman, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying. In women, the animus shows up as the strong, silent type, the protector, the savior, or worse, the inner critic with a PhD in self-doubt. You're not doing enough. You'll never measure up. Ring any bells? These figures are not bad, but when projected onto real people, they distort reality. You're not seeing them. You're seeing you, reflected through the mirror of longing. Academic debates still go back and forth. Are these archetypes universal or culturally constructed? Jung would say they're both. They emerge from the collective unconscious, but take shape based on your life story. Here's the paradox. The anima and animus are trying to help. They draw you to people who carry what you lack, not to make you whole, but to wake you up. Let's say you're a man constantly falling for emotionally unavailable women. That's not bad luck. That's your anima trying to show you the part of your soul you've been ignoring: your sensitivity, your vulnerability, or maybe you're a woman endlessly drawn to unavailable men. Your animus might be nudging you to find direction, strength, or purpose inside yourself, not in someone else's arms. Odd fact, in some Amazonian tribes, dreams of animals are believed to signal shifts in relationships. spiritual instinct and erotic longing, all in one dream. Old school wisdom. The Greeks spoke of Eros as both a god of love and a mischievous force of chaos, because desire doesn't come to keep you comfortable. It comes to transform you. When I realized I was projecting my anima onto others, everything changed. I stopped chasing unavailable women and started getting curious about the part of me that needed their reflection. And it wasn't pretty. It was lonely. It was humbling. It was liberating. Because once you start to integrate your anima, or animus, you stop falling in love with illusions and start connecting with real people. You stop needing others to carry your soul for you. You begin to carry it yourself. And trust me, there's nothing more attractive than someone who's done that work. They look into your eyes and don't need anything from you. They're just there, present, whole, and suddenly the game changes. You ever meet someone and feel like time just shifts? Like your chest opens a little, the world turns softer around the edges. You look into their eyes and feel this knowing, like they've always been there. We call it chemistry, soulmates, fate. But Jung had another word for it, projection. And I'll be honest, this one broke my heart a little, because I realized half the time I thought I was falling in love, I was actually falling into myself, or rather, the parts of myself I hadn't met yet. See, the psyche's smart. It wants you to grow, to evolve, to remember who you are. But it knows you're stubborn, so it tricks you. It sends someone into your life who wears the exact mask your soul responds to. Charming, mysterious, deep. They complete you, or so you think. But they're not who you're seeing. Not really. You're looking into a mirror, one shaped by years of longing, wounding, fantasy. This isn't love. It's a reunion with your unconscious. It sounds poetic until it isn't. Because when the projection breaks, and it always does, you're left staring at a human, a flawed, complex, ordinary person, and suddenly it feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's clarity. Odd fact, octopuses can taste through their skin. Imagine falling in love by accident every time someone touches you. That's what projection feels like, truth and illusion, all tangled up. Back in school, there was a guy I thought was brilliant. He'd quote Jung, Nietzsche, Rilke all before lunch. He seemed like the answer to a question I didn't know I'd asked. He wasn't. He was deeply insecure, avoidant. He vanished when life got real, and I was left wondering, what did I miss? Turns out, nothing. I had filled in the blanks with my own soul. That's the thing about projection. It doesn't lie. It tells you what's missing, but not out there in here. Jung believed falling in love often meant falling into a lost part of yourself. And when the fantasy fades, if you're willing, you can turn back inward and reclaim what was always yours. This is why we repeat patterns, why we date the same type over and over. It's not about bad luck. It's about unlearned lessons. You're not just choosing people. You're choosing mirrors. And until you see clearly, you'll keep picking the same shape, hoping this one turns out differently. Old school wisdom. The Sufis spoke of love as a mirror polishing act. You love someone until the ego is erased, and only the divine remains. You don't stop projecting by suppressing desire. You stop by owning it. You ask, why this person? Why now? What am I seeking through them? Sometimes the answer will hurt. Sometimes it will heal, but it will always bring you closer to wholeness. Because once you realize no one's coming to complete you, you become unstoppable. You love without clinging. You desire without losing yourself. And the people you attract, they're no longer actors in your dream. They're companions on your path, flesh and bone, truth and complexity. And that is where real love begins. Let's talk about the fire, that wild, pulsing current that runs through you when you want something or someone so deeply it feels unbearable. Desire, at its peak, doesn't whisper. It roars. It can feel divine. addictive, liberating, and terrifying, because desire, when unexamined, can consume everything in its path. And that's what makes it so misunderstood. We're told to chase it or repress it. Rarely are we told to understand it. Jung knew that this energy, this libido, wasn't just sexual. It was symbolic, a vital, raw force at the root of creation and destruction. It's the same fire that fuels art, revolution, falling in love, changing your life at 2A. Because you finally listened to the part of you that said, more than this. But when we fear the fire, we either try to put it out or burn ourselves up. It's like trying to cage a volcano or pour gasoline on a flicker just to feel alive. And both paths end badly. Odd fact, there's a plant called the resurrection fern. It can survive complete drought for years and come back to life with a single drop of water. Desire can be like that. Dormant, waiting until someone awakens it. And then you're flooded. That's where the danger is, when you don't know what to do with the flood. We weren't taught how to hold this kind of power. We were taught to moralize it, suppress it, or sell it. But what if desire wasn't meant to be caged or unleashed, but channeled? What if its purpose wasn't gratification, but transformation? The yogic traditions speak of Kundalini, a dormant energy coiled at the base of the spine. When awakened, it travels upward, burning illusions, purifying, elevating consciousness, not unlike Jung's libido, which, when repressed, turns neurotic, but when accepted, becomes enlightenment. I've lived both. I've chased the high, ended up burned and wondering why I never felt full, and I've also sat still with the ache, asked it what it wanted from me. And sometimes it didn't want sex. It wanted truth. It wanted permission to feel, to be seen, to stop pretending. Desire can be a compass, but only if you're honest about where it's pointing. Sometimes it's not pointing to another person. Sometimes it's pointing to the part of yourself you've exiled, the artist, the sensual being, the wanderer, the rebel, the lover, and yes, the wounded child, who still believes passion equals danger. Jung said, what you resist persists, what you accept transforms. So when we look into the fire of our own longing, not to extinguish it, not to be ruled by it, but to know it, that's when everything changes. Because then, desire becomes not a craving, but a key to the life that's actually meant for you. Not the one that feels safe, but the one that feels true. Old school wisdom. In alchemy, fire was the agent of transformation. To become gold, the base metal had to endure the flame. You're not meant to be consumed by desire. You're meant to be refined by it. And when you allow that, you don't lose your fire. You become it. There's a tension that lives in many of us. A quiet, relentless pull between comfort and chaos, between the part that wants to be held and the part that wants to burn. Jung understood this deeply. He saw it in dreams, in myths, in men and women alike. The archetypes of the mother and the temptress. And they're not just stories. They live inside us. They shape how we love, how we crave, how we fear. Let's start with the mother. She's warm. She's nurturing. She listens without judging. She says, "You're safe here." This archetype is universal. She's Isis. She's Mary. She's Gaia, the ultimate comfort, the emotional home, but left unchecked. She can smother. She can overprotect. She can erase her own needs in the name of care. And for many men, she becomes the unconscious blueprint of the ideal woman. He seeks someone to soothe him, complete him, but becomes resentful when she wants to be her own person. Then there's the temptress. She's wild, magnetic, unapologetic. She says, "Come closer if you dare." She doesn't want to hold you. She wants to awaken you. But society has always feared her. She's Lilith, Medusa, the siren, the woman blamed for making you want what you want. Odd fact, in ancient Mesopotamia, Ishtar was both goddess of war and love. She birthed life and called down storms. Because the feminine isn't one thing, it's everything in women. These archetypes clash silently. Should I be soft or powerful? Desirable or respectable? The one who gives or the one who wants? I've seen it play out in myself, trying to be enough in both directions, trying not to be too much, trying not to be too needy, trying not to be too free. It's exhausting. And in men, they chase the temptress, then resent her freedom. They love the mother, then feel trapped by her gentleness, because no one can carry that double image forever. Academic circles still debate whether these archetypes are innate or culturally constructed. Jung believed they're both. They arise from the collective unconscious, but take shape through personal experience. Old school wisdom in Hindu mythology. Kali is the goddess of death and rebirth. She destroys illusions, not because she's cruel, but because she wants you to be free. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the feminine, in all her forms, isn't here to comfort you or seduce you. She's here to wake you up, to show you what you've suppressed, to tear down what no longer serves, to birth something raw and alive. And when you start to see these forces not as opposites, but as complements, you stop the war inside. The woman who owns her inner temptress no longer needs to apologize for her passion. The man who stops idealizing the mother begins to care for his own soul. You stop seeking salvation in someone else, and you start becoming your own home. Desire becomes a dialogue, not a trap, not a test, but a truth. And in that space, real connection is finally possible, because now you're not looking for someone to fix your wounds. You're looking for someone to walk with you as you heal them yourself. There's a story that lives inside all of us. It begins with longing. It spirals through confusion. It crashes into heartbreak. And if we're brave enough, it ends in awakening. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. And right in the center of it, desire. But not the kind that just wants to consume, the kind that wants to become. Jung spoke of the sexual hero, not as a seducer, not as a conquest collector, but as a person willing to face the storm within. The sexual hero is the one who doesn't run from desire, but walks straight into it, with eyes wide open. It's easy to get drunk on want, to chase one high after another, but eventually, the thrill fades, and you're left with your own emptiness, echoing louder than ever. I've been there. There was a period in my life where I thought intensity meant love. If it wasn't overwhelming, it wasn't real. If it didn't hurt a little, it wasn't deep enough. But the truth, that was just my shadow playing dress up. I didn't want love. I wanted to feel alive. And I was using other people to light the match. The sexual hero learns the hard way, through pain, regret, and truth. They learn that desire isn't a map to another body. It's a compass to the lost places within. Odd fact. There's a species of frog that can freeze solid in winter, heart-stopped, only to thaw and leap again in spring. Your desire may freeze you, but it can also bring you back to life. Old school wisdom. In the ancient mystery schools, sex was sacred. It wasn't just about pleasure. It was ritual, a merging of energies meant to elevate the soul. The hero learns this, not in theory, but in the wreckage of misused passion. They start to ask deeper questions. Why do I chase what hurts me? What am I hoping to find in their eyes? What if the craving isn't for them, but for a version of me I haven't met yet? Academic psychology still wrestles with this. Is transformation through sexuality real, or just romanticized metaphor? But I've seen it, in myself, in others. When you stop fleeing from your desire, when you stop needing it to validate you, to anesthetize you, it changes form. It becomes fuel, art, purpose, clarity, God. The hero sublimates, not by denying their sexuality, but by weaving it into something higher, a painting, a movement, a life that glows from the inside out. And here's what nobody tells you. When you stop needing sex to save you, you start enjoying it for what it is, a dance, a language, a meeting of two sovereign souls. No more cages, no more mirrors, just presence. The hero walks through the fire, not unscathed, but awake. Desire didn't destroy them, it forged them. So if you're feeling lost in the maze of longing, if you keep circling the same pain, know this: you're not broken. You're on the path, and the part of you that aches the most may be the part that's closest to being reborn. By now, you've probably felt it, the thread connecting all of this. Desire is not your enemy. It's not a beast to tame, nor a prize to chase. It's a whisper, calling you inward, pulling you home. For Jung, sexuality was never just about the body. It was the soul's language, coded in metaphor, drenched in mystery. And when we stop looking at it with shame or hunger and start looking at it with presence, everything begins to shift. The same energy that drives obsession can be transformed into healing. The same force that creates chaos can become clarity. It's all about how conscious you are in the way you move toward your longing. Desire says there's something more, and your task isn't to run toward it blindly or suppress it completely. It's to pause, to ask, to listen. What is this really pointing to? What part of me have I exiled that now comes disguised as need? When you start to answer those questions, you become someone new, someone whole, someone who doesn't need to be completed, because they've started reclaiming what was missing all along. This is the journey of the sexual hero, not one who conquers others, but one who conquers illusion. So the next time your heart stirs, your breath shortens, and your thoughts wander to someone or something you feel pulled toward, pause, look deeper. The real treasure isn't out there. It's what you'll find when you follow the fire all the way back to yourself. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope today you find a quiet corner to continue that silent conversation with yourself. And don't forget to subscribe. There are many more videos to come about dreams, the shadow, and the hidden corners of the soul waiting for you ahead.